I know a lot of people on the left, myself included, are very, very hesitant when it comes to the idea of taking direct military action. But I think I am certainly different from a lot of people on the left because I've always said at the end of the day, sometimes diplomacy can only go so far. And there always has to be a point where you have to go, we've got to get involved. We've got to start mixing up. There's only so many times where, I mean, we've all been in that situation where we've seen someone, maybe someone we don't know or anything like that, get involved in a fight. And we've had the instinct to either go, I'm just going to walk on and not get involved, or I'm going to go in and at least try and pull these two apart. And that, of course, means having to physically get involved and get your hands dirty. And don't get me wrong, intervention in this, the objective of this is very clear, which is to secure the integrity of the nation of Ukraine, which basically will involve just pushing Russian forces out of Ukraine. That is what the tactical objective is. That is what it should be. Defeat Russia in Ukraine, and that is it. Just turf them out by hook or by crook. And of course, you've got to think about, well, what action does this mean? Does it mean setting up a no-fly zone? That's been talked about a lot before. Maybe that is what we should be. Maybe it becomes, okay, we've been supplying, Ukraine with, anti-tank weaponry. Well, now maybe we're going to start supplying them with maybe those old Challenger 2s, or maybe we'll send them some Challenger 3s so that they can, have, shall we say, a bit more heavy support as they try to push Russia out. Maybe we actually say, well, okay, your pilots need to come in and train. We will quite happily train you in these sort of new fighters we have. There's so much more stuff that we could be doing to help in Ukraine. And of course, direct military action. I think we are coming to that point where we have to consider it. And I think we actually have to seriously start talking about it. Because now that the battle for in and around like north of Kiev has certainly been won, the battlefront now shifts over to the east, where at least Russian forces seem to be a lot more prepared. Don't get me wrong, there has been an absolute display of incompetence on the Russian side, but that does not mean that those Russians aren't going to start learning from their mistakes. And the next part of this war that we will definitely see unfold will probably be very, very bad for Ukraine. As I said, I love it when they have a victory and how they've pushed them out of course, in and out of Kiev. But of course, now we're talking about the East. And at least in the East, that's a different story. That is an entirely different story. And I think we actually have to start seriously talking about the idea of military intervention. I think we have to start on the left a conversation about this. When is it acceptable to get involved militarily? We waited 2 years, I think it was, before starting the campaign we did in Bosnia. But we knew about, obviously, the genocides that were taking place before. And we have to ask the question, how much more people could we have saved in what was Yugoslavia at the time from genocide if we had acted earlier? But there is, and I understand it perfectly, a very, very hesitancy on the left to get involved militarily. I understand that. But at what point do we say, enough is enough, Russia, we need to get involved? And of course, I think this can't be just a decision taken by like a single country, by like the UK. I do think this needs to be a unilateral decision, because obviously if like one country gets involved, that means almost definitely Poland will probably become a target of Russia, as will the Baltic states of Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia. So I'm under no illusion that these countries will probably become targets as well. And this becomes a point now where we have to generally look and think, at what point do we get involved? I keep on saying that question. We have to start having this conversation. When do we start looking at getting involved militarily? I don't think we can't not consider that as a potential option anymore. Russia is, as we've seen in Mariupol and some of the pictures that have been coming out there recently, very, very happy to just destroy and wipe these cities off the face of the earth. They have made that very, very clear. They are quite happy to do that. And of course, I think it obviously comes, and obviously the big worry, and I understand the big worry is, of course, of nuclear war. But I think we make it very clear of, well, we're not going to launch first. I think we go into that. If we do have to have, again, when you are having this conversation, I think we make that very clear. We are not going to launch first. If anyone launches a nuclear weapon, it's going to be Russia, because Putin is so desperate that he starts a nuclear war. But bear in mind, I see there is a potential climb down from here. I see the potential climb down of what we can do to allow Putin maybe a bit of, shall we say, save some form of grace from this. And I think I've said this before, is we pull out all your troops from Ukraine and tell you what, you can keep Crimea. And also we'll reopen the channel of fresh water from Ukraine into Crimea. I think maybe a lot of Ukrainians are going to vehemently disagree about giving up Crimea, but if this means that you can have safety and security, and you get to keep obviously sort of the Donbass region in Ukraine, and it means peace, and it also means that you can join the EU more effectively, and of course, well, I don't know, again, the Transnistria issue, I think, is still a sticking point, but I think very, very clearly Moldova and Ukraine need to get together and just say, let's solve this issue once and for all. I think it's easily solvable now, especially with, again, a threat of potential another Russian invasion. But I think that is what could satisfy Putin, at least allow him to save some sort of grace on this. I can't see him backing down any other way, and that's the diplomatic route. Of course, that's where I say, hey, now we have to look at, do we have to get involved militarily and military intervention? I think on the left, we have to admit there comes a point where military intervention becomes the only option on the table, because Putin at this point has shown no inclinations for actually taking any diplomatic or negotiation seriously, because he hasn't yet achieved his objectives. And I still believe that objective is basically to take all of Donbass, and then all of a sudden he's going to start negotiating seriously, saying, it's ours now. We're not going to move any further. It's ours now. Come take it. I think that is what his intention is at the moment. I can't see him doing anything else. Like I say, he's not been successful in doing the regime change. It's very, very clear now that Ukraine is going to go even further towards the West and turn its back even faster on Russia and anything else Russia wants to offer Ukraine even more quickly as well. So, like I say, let me know what you think in the comments below. But I think we are getting to a point where military intervention in Ukraine could very well be the only option. So, as always, please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, well, buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you all next time.